We keep moving forward, opening new doors, and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. When Disney was created in the beginning, when it was a small studio and trying to gain footing, there was a team over the course of a few years that was assembled to lay down the footwork that would build Disney up into one of the greatest studios of the time, Disney's 9 Old Men. These men were all hired by Walt in the 1920s and 1930s, and all were present by the release of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. They were initially intended to be core animators, but then moved around the company into several roles, some including directors. These men have become Disney legends for their hard work, creativity, loyalty, and growth in the company. They are behind some of the most memorable Disney films and characters. But who were these men, and what exactly did they bring to the company that made them legends? Les Clark joined Disney in 1927. He was young and ambitious, having a summer job at an ice cream shop near Walt Disney Studio. Walt and Roy were frequent visitors at the shop, and one day Walt had complimented Les on his lettering for the shop sign. This one compliment encouraged Les to ask Walt for a job at his studio. Walt, being the dreamer he is, told Les to bring in some of his art for a meeting. From there, he began working at Walt Disney Studio. He began as a camera operator and worked on ink and paint. He soon moved to work under Uberworks for the development of Mickey Mouse. Clark was soon promoted to in-betweener for the production of Steamboat Willie. This position is the person that creates the art that happens in between two keyframes. This is what makes the two-dimensional drawing look as though it is moving. After the success of the production, he was promoted again to an animator for Silly Symphony: The Skeleton Dance. After Ube left the company, Clark was his replacement for the animation projects for Mickey Mouse. He was also tasked with animating the scene in Snow White where she dances with each of the dwarves. He would continue to enhance his skills and talent, and animate infamous characters like Pinocchio, Cinderella, Alice, and Tinkerbell. Mark Davis joined the team in 1935 for the production of Snow White. Later, he would develop characters like Bambi and Thumper from Bambi, Tinkerbell from Peter Pan, Maleficent, Aurora, and the Raven from Sleeping Beauty, as well as Cruella de Vil from The 101 Dalmatians. Mark attended the Kansas City Art Institute, the California School of Fine Arts in San Francisco, and the Otis Art Institute in Los Angeles. Having moved around a lot as a child, attending over 26 schools before high school, Mark was often bullied. He used art as an escape, and found that kids stopped bullying him and rather wanted his artwork instead. As a college student, he would draw animals at the zoo during the day, and then study their anatomy at his local library. Walt Disney referred to Mark as his Renaissance man. He could tell a story, he could create a character, he could animate, he could design shows. Walt explained that all he had to do was tell Mark what he wanted, and Mark would be able to put it together. From 1961, Mark moved to working at Disneyland. He was responsible for the character design for both the Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion attractions. Ollie Johnston also joined the studio to work on Snow White in 1935. You may recognize some of his work, including Mr. Smee from Peter Pan, the Stepsisters in Cinderella, Prince John and Sir Hiss in Robin Hood, and Ichabod Crane. Ollie went to Stanford University and then completed his education at Chouinard Art Institute. One of Ollie's great loves in life, and one of his most interesting passions, was live steam trains. He created his own miniature steam train in his backyard that would eventually inspire the train used in Walt Disneyland, California. He went forward in his career to co-author the Animator's Bible, The Illusion of Life. Ollie was the last surviving of the 9 Old Men until his passing in 2008. Milton Call began working in the Disney Studio for the production of Snow White in 1934. Milt dropped out of school at the age of 16 to get a job and help support his family. he secured a job at the Oakland Post-Inquirer. He worked in their art department and soon befriended a fellow artist named Ham Luskay. Ham would later become one of Disney's 4 young men who would later inspire and train the 9 old men. Luskay would train Milt himself. When Ham left the Inquirer, he moved to San Francisco. When the Great Depression hit, Milt lost his job. He struggled to find work when his old friend Ham reached out and told him to move to San Francisco to work at Disney Studios with him. Milt was extremely talented, and it didn't take long for him to gain the attention of his fellow artists. He was known for not only his talent, but for his temper as well. He was one of the most volatile of the 9 old men. His perfectionism would lead him to become outraged when his standards were not met. Ward Cambal joined the ranks of the Walt Disney Studios in 1934. He attended Santa Barbara School for the Arts with a major in painting and illustration. One of Ward's instructors suggested that he show his portfolio to Walt Disney Studios to become an animator. He was hired at Disney as an in-betweener. He was promoted to assistant animator under Ham Luskay. In 1936, Ward was promoted again to a lead animator. After the production of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, Ward was promoted to directing animator. This is the position he would later retire from in the 1970s. Ward was an amazing animator. With his love and passion for illustration, he was able to create characters that had so much emotion and expression. Walt has even gone so far as to call him a genius. Eric Larson was the longest Disney employee of the 9 old men, serving the company for 53 years. Eric was a talented artist who discovered his talents in high school. He would later develop more of an interest in writing and would choose to attend college with a major in journalism. After graduating, Eric took one of his writings to a radio station, hoping to sell it as a serial. But they didn't respond as he thought they would, and they recommended that he seek help from a former writer from their station, Richard Creedon. Richard was currently working at Disney Studio in their story department. Richard mentioned that Disney was hiring new talent, and animation would challenge him. Eric submitted some sketches and was placed in the animation department. He said after 2 days he wanted to quit. He stuck it out though, and none other than Ham Luskay requested to have him put on his team. By 1940, Eric became an animation director for Pinocchio. Walt became interested in recruiting more new talent as the years went by. Many of the animators were retiring or passing away, and Eric showed great interest in passing along the legacy. He would go on to teach and train many of the greatest animators, directors, and creators of our time, including Brad Bird, Tim Burton, Don Bluth, and Ron Clements. Eric was one of the most loved of the 9 old men. He had a knack for training and mentoring the future animators. John Lounsbury was hired by Walt Disney in 1935 at the recommendation of his college art professor. John was one of the youngest in the 9 old men, as well as the shyest. His characters more than made up for his shy nature though, with their boisterous and loud demeanors. After several years specializing in Pluto shorts, John was promoted to directing animator and worked on projects like Dumbo, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Sleeping Beauty, The Aristocats, and Robin Hood. One of his greatest works that is still beloved to this day was his work with Winnie the Pooh. John died young though while he was still working on The Rescuers for Disney, making him the shortest lived of the 9 old men. Wolfgang Reatherman was hired at Disney in 1933 as a director and animator. Wolfgang was lovingly nicknamed Wooly by his fellow animators. He would become an integral part of Disney Studios after the death of Walt in 1966. He was sought out by the studio when his art attracted the attention of a painting instructor that showed his artwork to Walt. Wooly would take a break from working as an animator during the Second World War to join the United States Air Force. He would later return after the war to continue his love for animation. Some of his most memorable animation sequences are the battle against Prince Philip and Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty, the Headless Horseman in The Adventures of Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad, and the crocodile in Peter Pan. He was instrumental in the production of Cinderella. While Walt was unsure about trying to produce another feature film after the financial crisis they were having, Woolley convinced him to do it. After Walt's death, Woolley became the producer and director of 8 consecutive films, including 101 Dalmatians and The Fox and the Hound. Frank Thomas joined the Disney team in 1934. He attended Stanford University with his fellow old man Ollie, with whom he co-authored the Illusion of Life book. Some of his most infamous animations include the stepmother in Cinderella, the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland, Captain Hook in Peter Pan, and the spaghetti scene in Lady and the Tramp. Along with Woolley, Frank joined the Air Force when World War II broke out. He was actually in charge of making training videos for the war efforts as well. Frank's son would later produce a film called Growing Up with 9 Old Men to honor his father and the others in this legendary group. This group of men is largely responsible for the original Disney films that laid the groundwork for the Renaissance and modern Disney films. They refined the 12 basic principles of animation and are responsible for the recruitment and training of the future animators at Disney. Their love of storytelling through art and animation is infectious and inspirational. These legends are forever the foundational stones of one of the largest and most popular animation studios in the world. These are Disney's 9 Old Men.